Hey, it's your buddy Smokey, and it just popped into my head that while I was talking about chords, that a lot of harmony theory is not really something that guitar players get into unless they're dealing with music that requires them to. And while you've probably been able to skate by this far without theory, you need it. Because you're going to ask yourself questions, or you're going to ask your teacher questions that are theory questions. And if you don't know theory, you can't answer them for yourselves, and you won't get a deeper understanding of what you do. Now, I know a lot of players that are afraid of, maybe not afraid, but reluctant to learn theory because they feel it'll make them a different player. It will make you a different player in the sense that it gives you more depth. It gives you more options, but it doesn't have to change the way that you play. It doesn't have to change who you are as a musician. Just because you know theory, it kind of doesn't obligate you to use it and be uber clever with everything and all of that. No, you can, if say like you're a blues rocker and you want to learn more scales, well, you want to learn more scales. That's a theory thing. Because you have to know some theory about how to substitute scales for other things and where they come from and what they make. So here is a primer for the guitarist or any other musician or a singer or a songwriter who doesn't know theory. And theory isn't numbers, it's formula. So I'm going to give you the formula for some of the things that you need to know, and I will give you tactile examples. But to start with, it all starts with a scale. Chords come from scales, okay? And how that happens is you take a scale, and you take every other note in that scale, and you stack it on top of each other. That's a chord. There you go. That's where chords come from. You take, in Western music, you take every other note in the scale, stack it, that's a chord. And the note that you start with is what's known as the root. The next note in the chord is a third higher, every other note. 1, 2, 3. There's your third. Put that on top. The next note in a basic chord is the fifth. It's the next note of the every other note sequence. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth from the root. Put it on top. Now, every time you do that, and you stack a chord based on the note of the scale, each one, then there's a pattern to what kind of chords happen. And in a major scale system, it doesn't matter if it's C major or D major or whatever. If you're building a chord off the first note in the scale, it will always be a major chord. Always. Always. That's the beautiful thing about the formula. That's the major scale formula. So we'll play a major scale for you. Okay, we'll do this on G. So G major. 1, 2, 3, whole steps in between. The note, the fourth note, is a half step from the third note. So 1, 2, 3, half step to 4, whole step to 5. 6 is a whole step, 7 is a whole step, and then a half step again to the octave, the repeating of the scale, the repeating of the root. The next G. So, I'll play this in an ascending fashion this way. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You've heard the song. It's the major scale. Now, when you take every other note in the scale, that's where chords come from. You just stack them up and play them all at once. Boom, it's a chord. So, on the one chord being built off the first note of the scale. That's when you hear somebody say the one chord, it's like to 1, 4, 5 in G major. You're building chords off the first note, the fourth note, and the fifth note of the scale. That's what that means. So 1, 4, 5 in G major is going to be G major, C major. That's the fourth note of the scale, and the chord then built on top of it. 5, D. Off the fifth note of the scale. That's why it's the 5 chord. So 1, 4, 5. How many songs do you know that go? You know quite a few. That's a 1, 4, 5, 4 progression. When you hear somebody say something like that, that's what that is. It's a chord built off those numbers of the scale, and the chords are built on top of that, and those are the only chords you play. Now, that formula of the major scale, the 1 chord will always be a major. The 4 and the 5 chord will always be major chords. Always. Whether you're in G major or A major or whatever, it doesn't matter. The 1 chord will always be a major. 4 and 5 will always be majors. If you're just dealing with the basic building blocks of this, that's what that is. And that's all that is. It's just a formula. If you have these intervals set in a row, whole step, whole step, whole step, between 3 and 4 a half step, 4 to 5 a half step, 5 to 6 a half step, and to 7 another half step, or I'm sorry, whole step. I'm sorry, not half steps. So, again. Right? And I'm a theorist. Long day, people. I'm sorry. So, 1, 2, 3, whole steps. Half step to 4. 5, 6 whole steps. Whole step to 7. Half step to the root, the octave. So, that's a major scale. 3 and 4 will always be half steps. 7 and 8 will always be half step. Everything's a whole step. Boom. That's a major scale formula. Therefore, when you move the formula to a different root, the chords stay the same. If the formula is that simple, theory is that simple in its basic Western foundation, you just want to play and write songs, whether it be pop or some rock or whatever, it's got to do with the scale generates the chord. The chords always fall in a pattern. It's the same pattern no matter where you move it. If you're just dealing with the basic, boom, beginning of functional harmony, there it is. So, play all the chords for you. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in G major, 1 is G, 2 is A minor, B, 3 is minor, half step to 4, major, whole step to 5, major, whole step to 6, minor, whole step to 7, minor 7 flat 5, we'll get into that, and then octave, half step, G again. That's it. That's the formula for basic major scale theory, and that's if you do a lot of pop, that's what that is. Those are the formulas. It's really simple. So you as a writer, you don't have to think in theory to compose, but it helps you to communicate to other musicians if you can speak in theory. If you can speak in that, it's just a 1, 4, 5 in A, or it's a 1, 5, 4 in A. Okay, that's great. Then I know to go 1, 5, 4, 1. And if one day the singer goes, A is the wrong key for me, I'm going to play it in G. But it's still the same chord progression. It's 1, 5, 4, 1. Well, then in G I know. 4. Those formulas don't change. The only time there's a change is when you're borrowing things from other keys and imposing them inside your basic structure. And that happens. And that's something else we'll get into. But in terms of the basic, get you started, major scale theory, that's it. 1, 2, 3, half step to 4. 5, 6, 7, half step to 8. The chords that are built on top of that by taking every other note in the scale and stacking it. Those numbers will always have a corresponding chord, and those chords will always be the same according to those numbers if you're just dealing with the basic. You can get deeper into theory. You can learn all your substitutions. You can, implying things from other keys, borrowing. There's formulas for every scale. But the great thing is those formulas don't change unless you're imposing something or borrowing something. Okay? So that's basic theory using the major scale in a nutshell. If you can count to 7, you can learn theory. So the chords go major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished or minor 7 flat 5. There's the octave, which is 1, major. We'll always go in that order until the end of time, or we just stop using major scales altogether. But that's it. So for you as a beginning guitarist, or even if you're a guitarist who's been playing a while and just didn't want to know theory, or reluctant to because you were worried that it was going to change what you do, that's it. That's all theory is. You have a scale, scales make chords, the number notes of the scale, and the corresponding chords to them always happen in that formula no matter where you put it. No matter where you put it. Simple, easy, wonderful. Now, if you have any questions, because something wasn't made clear, that's not your fault, my fault, I didn't make it clear. So hopefully I made it clear, but if you do have questions, by all means, get a hold of me here, get a hold of me on my Facebook, get a hold of me on Gmail, and boom, I'll answer them for you. I got no questions because, in terms of you want to know something, you're not stupid. If you don't get it, it's because it wasn't being told to you in a clear manner. Okay? So you can do this. If a monkey like me can do this, you can do this. And that's what I always thought about playing guitar, because I know some guys that play guitar, they're idiots. I'm not even talking about musical idiots. They're just stone cold fucking idiots as human beings, and they can do this. If they can do this, I can do this. If they can do this, you can do this. So, yeah, any questions, just get a hold of me. It's your buddy Smokey. And don't worry, theory is not going to ruin you. It's something that you need to consider. It's something you need to use in terms of communicating to other musicians. You don't have to show them anything. You can just tell them. Boom. So, even if you don't know what a chord is, now you can figure something out for yourself because you have that background. A lot of that will have to do with, I don't know what this chord is, but look at the other chords and which way they're going and what they're doing. Then you understand, it's just that. It's just this functioning as this. Oh, okay, cool, I get it. And that's the thing. Music becomes less of a mystery to you. And if you play music because you love it, it shouldn't be a mystery to you in terms of how it works. Because the more you know how it works, the more you can create, and the more you can play with, and the more that you can figure out for yourself. Which, at the end of the day, even I, as a teacher, I want you to be able to do. Some of these things you have to figure out for yourself. We give you the seeds, you plant them, you grow them, you harvest them. It's your music, it's your playing, it's your soul on the line here. So it's your buddy Smokey. We'll see you later. Get a hold of me. Have a good night.